Hello, everyone, and welcome to our next panel discussion in the Future of Education Summit webinar series, powered by our friends at Toddle. My name is Scott Miller, and as one of the Summit co-founders, it is my absolute pleasure to be your MC and moderator for the panel discussion today. Now, to kick us off, I'd like to begin by acknowledging the wisdom of the original innovators and traditional custodians of the country throughout Australia that all of our panelists are joining from today. We recognise their continuing connection to land, waters, and community, and we pay our respects to them and their cultures, and to elders past, present, and emerging. Now, today's panel discussion is exploring the theme of AI in education. And as AI continues to make waves across industries, it's no surprise that education finds itself right in the middle of the conversation. Many teachers are asking, is this the end of the teaching profession as we know it, or is it just the beginning of a new chapter? Today, we'll be unpacking how AI is being used to support, not replace, the work of educators, from reducing admin and personalising learning to helping teachers reclaim time for what really matters. In this webinar, we'll be discussing the opportunities and the challenges shaping the next evolution of teaching and learning in today's incredibly connected AI-powered world. Before we dive into our conversation, I would like to take a moment to spotlight Toddle, one of our 2025 Summit partners and the driving force behind today's webinar. Toddle is Australia's fastest growing learning management system and the world's leading AI-powered teaching and learning platform. Going beyond a typical LMS, Toddle streamlines every aspect of teaching and learning, from curriculum planning and assessments to progress reports and communication. Currently, more than 2,000 schools around the world use Toddle to help teachers reclaim valuable time so they can focus on what matters most: teaching. Over the next hour, our panel of education leaders from across Australia will be sharing how they're seeing AI influence classrooms, help reduce teacher workloads, and enhance student outcomes, while we also explore the ethical, the practical, and human sides of this emerging technology. Now, as we dive into our discussion, let me introduce our fantastic panelists. First up, we have Melissa O'Shea, who is representing Toddle on today's panel. Mel has over 25 years of experience in education, including 7 years as the head of teaching and learning and 15 years experience in IB education. Since 2024, she's worked with Toddle as Senior Manager for School Partnerships, supporting schools in implementing effective solutions. Mel is passionate about delivering high-quality professional development with extensive knowledge of the Australian curriculum, inquiry-based pedagogy, and universal design for learning. Joining us, we also have the phenomenal James Jenkins, who is the head of AI and digital transformation at Canterbury College, where he works at the intersection of AI tools and classroom practice. He develops practical applications of AI for education, focusing on creating accessible, interactive tools that support differentiated learning for deeper student engagements. He's committed to empowering educators with the knowledge and the skills to effectively incorporate AI into their teaching practice while maintaining rigorous academic standards. And last but certainly not least, we have Dr. Juliana Peloche. Juliana is a senior learning advisor with Edith Cowan University, specializing in AI literacy and educational innovation. With a PhD in AI education from the University of Wollongong and over 20 years of primary and tertiary education teaching experience across Brazil, Chile, and Australia, Juliana bridges emerging technologies with inclusive learning practices. Her work focuses on stakeholder engagement, policy development, and supporting staff and students in navigating the ethical and the practical dimensions of AI in higher education. So I'm sure you can all agree we have a truly phenomenal panel joining us for our webinar today, and I cannot wait to dive into the questions. So to kick us off, as our panelists say hi and set the scene, I wanted to start by thinking big and looking at some of the exciting ways AI is being used in education. It's definitely a hot topic and we're seeing some great outcomes. We're also seeing some educators that are a little hesitant. I'd love to ask each of our panelists to kick us off where they see the greatest uses of AI in education. Is there a case study, an example, a learning experience that each of you have been involved in using AI in the education industry to improve learning outcomes? Mel, I might start with you. Do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, there are so many things to choose from. I guess a couple of things that I've been really passionate about and have done a bit of research on have been AI student tutors. I see them as a particularly powerful tool that are going to benefit not just learners within Australia, but globally as well. So, if we look at the Sustainable Development Goals and, access to quality education for all learners. This is something that can really, change things for children around the world. But here in Australia, I see them as a really powerful tool for really supporting the personalisation of learning. And this, fantastic for students because they're able to get learning that's actually targeted to what they need, but how brilliant for teachers as well, because the students are getting this timely support and the teachers are getting the feedback as well, so that they can focus on, what next for these learners rather than identifying, what are gaps, what are strengths. So much potential there.
Absolutely. And I think it's so exciting, particularly when we talk so much about differentiated learning, understanding that all of our students learn in such different ways. When you're one teacher in one classroom with 30 different students sitting in front of you, it can be so hard to tailor your approach to each of those different learning styles. But I think through AI tutors and other AI tools, there are so many ways you can take one piece of content, one lesson plan, one set of slides, and really adapt it for all of your different learners, meeting them where they are and enhancing those student learning outcomes. Fantastic. Thanks, Mel. Now, James, I'd love to hear your perspective on this because I know you've been working on some phenomenal projects at Canterbury College, and I love following all of your updates on LinkedIn of how you're implementing AI into so many different classrooms across the college, in so many different year levels and in curriculum areas. Can you share, some of the greatest or most exciting projects you've been working on this year and where you've seen those projects using AI to help improve learning outcomes?
Yeah, thanks, Scott. And I guess a lot of the credit for the different projects goes to the staff that are actually sort of driving those individual things at Canterbury College. And I'm lucky enough in my role to, I guess, in some ways lead some of those things, but also to facilitate a lot of projects that other staff want to drive. I totally agree with what Mel said. I think the idea of the AI tutors is awesome. Student agency, I think, is really important. So when students know what they're wanting to learn, what they're wanting to get better at, and they can have those good iterative conversations with either an AI agent that's been provided for them by the teacher or even something that they've come up with themselves, I think that's a really great way for them to learn new content or to consolidate what they've been learning, that kind of thing. One of the trends that I'm seeing at Canterbury in particular is the idea of using AI vibe coding to create software. And that software can be something really simple, like a simulation that you might use in a biology classroom, or it can be an interactive that focuses on student understanding of keywords or definitions and for a particular subject area. But I think it's almost like your imagination is the limiting factor when you're wanting to create some kind of digital tool that's going to help either you as a staff member, a teacher, or something that you can use in your class. So we obviously have a whole range of different subjects, and we're getting people creating these tools for humanities subjects, for analysing text, for scientific concepts, all sorts of things. So I think there's a bit of a buzz around the place at the moment for being able to create resources that maybe we've thought of doing before but haven't really had the means to do. So AI has afforded us that opportunity. So I think that's something that we're really enjoying at the moment.
That's fantastic. And I think so exciting, particularly for students, to be able to visualize their work and take what's happening up in here in their head, all those phenomenal ideas, and getting them out onto paper or onto a screen. I even saw a phenomenal example of some Canterbury students that were showing me the product designs that they've been able to create using generative AI, where they said, look, I had this idea for a product I wanted to create. I knew in my head how I wanted it to look. But through a bit of back and forth with some generative AI tools, they were able to then showcase it and showcase what that product was going to look like. And I think that's just so exciting to see. Now, Juliana, I'd love to hear your perspectives on what you're seeing, because working across the tertiary space, I know AI is being used in so many different ways as we look at how we best prepare students for the workforce and give them that competitive advantage as they head into industry. Can you share any examples of where you've seen AI being used to improve some student learning outcomes, but also to just do some really exciting stuff in the education space?
Yeah, thank you, Scott. I think I'm a bit like you just mentioned, like the one that imagines things, and then when I draw, when I write, it's not exactly the way I imagine. So even with my own use, I can see like the potential of how we can use AI to translate that thing that we have in our minds, so others can understand better. But I wanted to, and I think it's amazing to know the use of AI when you talk to students, because sometimes we imagine using AI for a certain way that they look and say, no, that's not the way I use it. And they come up with something completely different. And what I love most to see is how AI is being able to put everyone pretty much on the same level. And I'm talking about neurodivergent students, and we can see this happening here quite a lot. So I've got a friend who is neurodivergent as well. And she says that she finally can be competitive in terms of writing, for example, with anyone else. And here at the university, we see as well with international students that sometimes get to get their assessments, let's say, marked down because they couldn't really express in English what they wanted. So if it's not the English that is being assessed, but the idea and the understanding behind, so AI can actually make sure that the message behind is clear enough so others can understand. So I think these are the two main focus that I can see at the moment that I think is amazing for international students and neurodivergent students, all put on the same level. So we start together from there.
Absolutely. And I think that's just so great, the equity piece as well. Like you said, not getting caught up in the minor details, but helping get the phenomenal ideas out onto paper and really letting so many different types of students really demonstrate their skills. Now, my next question for each of you, before we dive a little bit deeper, but really just to set the scene, is around using AI to work smarter, not harder. Now, obviously, it's no secret that we are facing a bit of a teaching shortage here in Australia. We're finding that teachers, it seems like workload just keeps increasing, and there's so much on our plates as educators. And I know we've talked a lot about how students are using AI and some of the phenomenal outcomes for them, but I'd love to hear your experiences around how educators are using AI to reduce their workload and help better support themselves as educators. James, I might start with you. How are you seeing staff at Canterbury being able to leverage AI to work smarter, not harder, and tackle the ever-increasing workload that it feels like we have today?
Yeah, Scott, great question. And I think it probably depends on the teacher. And the reason I kind of say that is because different teachers enjoy different parts of what they do more than other parts of what they do. For example, I've spoken to a lot of teachers that say, like there's all these lesson planning tools that we've got out there, but I actually quite enjoy planning a lesson, like curating a lesson and how that's going to go. That's, something I really enjoy doing. But maybe I don't enjoy creating, the parent letters or the documentation that I need to sort out each week and things like that. So I think depending on kind of, what maybe your strengths are, what your the things are that you like doing more than others, that's sort of going to probably determine how you use AI. For example, if you're an out of area teacher, so maybe you're teaching in a content area that's not your main area, and there's not a huge number of resources available to you, then you're probably going to be leaning on AI to help you with some of your unit planning and some of your lesson development, those sorts of things. But if you're teaching a subject that you've been teaching for 10 years and you've maybe got that side of it pretty much under control, but you might think, there's a particular section that I normally use a diagram for. That would work much better as an interactive simulation, or I could maybe create a particular resource for that works a little bit better. So I think it's quite dependent on the individual teacher. I think, we all know that we are time poor. So often it's those admin type tasks, I think, that probably take some of our time away from the things that we would maybe rather be doing. And I'm certainly seeing some people starting to use the tools that we've got available to help speed those processes up. So I think those sorts of things are really useful as well.
Absolutely. And I think that's always so exciting to see, or we can just get back to doing more of what we are good at, what we enjoy and what we love to do. Because I think for everyone working in the education sector, it's such a great sector because we all do it because we love it. We're passionate about it. We really enjoy what it is we do. But as with every job, there are some the things that you love and things you don't love. And it's just a great way to let us get back to doing what we do best. Mel, from your perspective, I know you work with educators and schools from across the country. What are you seeing schools doing and how educators are using it to reduce their workload?
Yeah, look, that's it's a massive question, isn't it? Some stats actually around those kind of tasks that teachers are doing. So the 2023 AITSL Workforce Survey, which surveyed 42,000, just under 42,000 participants, had teachers spending between 5 and 10 plus hours a week on lesson planning. It had 80% of teachers were spending 5 to 10 hours a week on lesson planning, 50% 5 to 10 hours on admin tasks, 50% a week on 5 to 10 hours a week on marking. So they're really big numbers. And exactly what James said, teachers have different strengths. They prefer doing different things. What we've seen with Toddle in particular is that we've actually deeply embedded AI throughout our entire platform. So you can use it for your curriculum design, your lesson creation. You can use it to build, really quick quizzes, exams, the AI student tutors. You can use it for assessments, AI grading, that first class with your drafting. You can use it for report writing, communication to your family. So it's there through the whole platform. And I guess what's really powerful about it is that it's already got that teacher lens. It's got that context there for you. So we found that it's interesting, James, when you mentioned the lesson planning, because that's something that I've been extremely passionate about. I think that it's really important that, teaching and learning is engaging for our learners. But what I found using Toddle within a school was that we actually used the curriculum design assistant quite a lot, because we had those great ideas, but it was spending the time to kind of bring those ideas into something that was actually usable within the classroom. So that's where AI could really save us time. We could, come up with those great ideas and bring something to the classroom that was engaging, exciting, relevant, differentiated for the schools that we were teaching.
Absolutely. No, that's fantastic. And I think for me, I know I've seen some of my favorite PD that I've been to this year has been AI Power Hours, where you just get teaching teams together and they spend just an hour or 2 hours and just like playing back and forth with their AI tool of choice to map out some learning experiences for the year ahead. And I think it's just phenomenal as a brainstorming tool, as a curriculum mapping tool, just helping get the creative juices flowing, but then also to make sure you're meeting all of the key points that you need to meet with a specific learning experience. And I think that's something I'd recommend for any educator doing their planning for 2026 is put some time in, whether it's an hour, a morning, an afternoon, with your teaching team, and just spend some time playing on AI and see what learning experiences you can design. And Juliana, from your perspectives, you've worked in education settings across the country and around the world. What are some of the most exciting use cases you've seen for AI that educators are doing to help reduce their workload?
I'm with James. Like, it really depends on the teacher. And I think it's back to what you said as well, Scott. Spending time like with the teaching team gives you the opportunity to understand and know people, right? In fact, to understand what they are passionate about, what they like, what they dislike. So I had very interesting conversations with some educators about marking. Some of them said, "Oh, I can't wait to get rid of marking," and others said, "Oh, that's how I get to know my students." So it's really like I like marking, so I know where they are. So it's just like I think we go back to that belief that AI is not one fits all kind of thing. So I love to say about AI fluency, when you are literate enough to actually go and pick up the parts of your work that AI can help you with. Without literacy, you can't get to fluency. Like, it's just a continuum. But I think everyone needs to have this kind of knowledge to understand where AI can actually help them. I think that lesson planning, as Mel was saying, is something that AI can really augment. So maybe if you come with a blank page and you don't know where to start, or you have like rough ideas of what you need, but then the AI starts suggesting, and that mix, that human mix with machine is the one that is really what we want to have in this space and have good results, so students can actually be more engaged in the learning, and teachers have their extra time to devote to what's really important for them.
Absolutely. And I think that's such a great point, Juliana. I know our first question, we talked about how you can use AI to differentiate for students, but also too using AI to differentiate for your teachers. In any staff room, you have such a diverse ecosystem of educators with different skills and different interests. And it's really as well allowing, as a school leader, using AI to help your team shine in what they do best. Now, I think we've really set the scene. We've started thinking big around some use cases of AI for students and also for educators. And what I wanted to do is I've got some one-on-one questions for each of you to dive that little bit deeper, to say, well, what are some practical takeaways that all of our educators watching can take back to their schools, their staff rooms, and their communities as they plan for 2026? And James, I'd love to start with you. Now, your work at Canterbury College is incredibly exciting because you've got such a diverse community that you're rolling out these digital tools with. And I think when it comes to any type of technology that you roll out, you'll always have those early adopters, but then you also have those laggards, those people that sort of get pulled along kicking and screaming. And you've got different people that have got different perspectives when it comes to AI and emerging technologies. I'd really love to understand what approaches you found most effective when incorporating AI for the Canterbury College community, when talking to those different types of stakeholders, those that are really engaged, really enthusiastic, but also maybe those that are a little bit more apprehensive. Yeah, can you share some insights into the approaches that you've used to help sort of communicate that and show educators how they can use AI?
Yeah, of course. So we've tried a few different things, and I don't know that any one of them by themselves is like the perfect way of doing what we're trying to achieve. But I think the combination, we're sort of getting there. And I guess Canterbury College has got a staff that generally are pretty enthusiastic when it comes to using technology. We're a Microsoft Showcase school, and for a fair while, we've had various innovative type projects that we've been running. In terms of the specific things that we've kind of tried to do for AI adoption, we know that teachers are going to use this best when they've got a good knowledge. If they don't have a knowledge of what's out there and some level of confidence in using, they're probably less likely to use it in class. The more often they start using things in class, then they're going to continue on that journey. And also they're obviously modeling things really well for their students. So I think the thing is we needed to come up with some ways of getting the staff on board to begin with. So if we go back to semester 1 this year, we ran something called the AI Explore sessions. So AI Explore was every week on a lunchtime and one afternoon during the week, we looked at a particular AI tool or a strategy or a pedagogical approach using that AI. And it was essentially voluntary for people to come and have a bit of a play around with things. And we covered everything from, I guess, sort of the major large language models. We're a co-pilot school, being the Microsoft product. But we also looked at things like Canva AI and a huge range of things. And then, as I say, some of the more pedagogical type things. With that, I reckon from a staff of well over 100, we probably had 30, 40 people registering for those different sessions. So. But people are busy, teachers are busy. So, some of them at lunchtime are out doing sports trainings and other things. So we switched the model slightly to try and do something different in term 3. And we ran some AI challenges, which essentially was each week there was a different challenge that you had to complete with AI. We kind of gave you the scenario, gave you the tool to use, some instructions around how to use that. And it was kind of like a take-home type exercise. Teachers could do that whenever they wanted during the week. And then there was like a feedback form that they would submit at the end. And they could also submit some of the artifacts of the things that they did. With that one, apart from the teachers that had initially opted for the AI Explore sessions, I reckon we probably got an extra 15, 20 of our staff. So we're sort of slowly building with that. And then bearing in mind that those things are optional, at the start of this term on one of the student free days, we thought, okay, how are we going to hit some of those? I'm not sure if the laggards are the correct term, but maybe some of those teachers that were too busy to do some of those other things. So we had, as part of our student free day at the start of this year, the start of this term, compulsory teach meet sessions, and of those there were about 6 or 7 AI focus sessions. So one of our staff went through all the different ways that you can access Copilot, because it appears in a range of apps and other things now. There was one specifically on using AI for student feedback. There was one that was specifically around our planning documents, and so teachers could elect to go to those. So I think what we're doing is we're slowly kind of hitting as many people as possible, and then of course you've also got your staff room conversations that occur. So I did this particular activity as part of the AI challenge. Oh, you're not in the AI challenge. What do you mean? Sign up. And so gradually I think we start hitting more people, and then as teachers are using this in their classroom with students, because a lot of it's about creating resources, things like that, then the students start talking. Oh, my teacher hasn't done anything to do with that. Miss, when are we going to be using that thing? So I think there's that kind of stuff that happens as well. So I think there's not just a one size fits all, but it's certainly about knowledge. It's certainly about giving people an opportunity to play with things, and then getting them to actually go out and start using things to build that confidence.
Absolutely. No, that's fantastic. And I think it's having all of those different engagement opportunities, understanding that for so many educators, we have so much on our plates, we're so busy, but also busy at different times. There might be some educators that at the start of the year, term 1, it is their time to sort of sink their teeth in. Others, though, might prefer something in term 4 where they start to wrap things up for the year. So I think it's great to have those different engagement opportunities. I'd love to, just before I dive on to our next speaker, though, James, can you share one of your favorite AI tools that you're using at the moment and how you're using it in the classroom? For any of our educators watching, thinking about different AI projects they could run next year, is there a project, a tool, a challenge that you've been loving that's landed quite well with the community this year?
Yeah, so like as a school, we have our school tools that we use. So we have Copilot for students and for staff, and that's what we focus on at school, because we have the enterprise version with the data protection. So we're quite happy for teachers using that, because anything they put into that stays secure in our environment. So I'm always sort of wary when I'm talking to teachers. Well, if you're using personal tools, you've got to make sure that you're not putting any sensitive information, all this kind of stuff. So certainly when we're doing things at school, it's sort of the Copilot that we're using. But personally, I love Claude at the moment. So Claude is a tool that is probably winning the race in the areas of coding at the moment. So I mentioned vibe coding earlier. So if I'm wanting to create a little activity to use in class, and I'll explain that activity, a bit of iterative conversation around it, and I can have something that works really well, usually HTML coding, because then students can just open that activity in Microsoft Edge, something like that. But that's certainly my go-to for that. The other thing that I find is really interesting is because a lot of these models have history attached to them now, so they know your historic conversations, quite often you'll be trying to create something, and it may have a better idea from a previous conversation that you've had that it can bring into the conversation. So I think, there's a whole lot of possibilities just around essentially using some of these agents as your thinking partner, to bounce ideas off of, almost your intern, I think.
Absolutely. No, I love that. That's such a great way to think about it. And I know I've definitely done the same, taken the same approach. Anything that I would have gotten an intern to do, you can probably get AI to do for you as well. Thank you so much, James. Now, Juliana, I'm going to head to you next to ask a couple of questions. And I loved what you touched on in our opening around using AI to increase inclusion and accessibility. And I know for so many of our educators, particularly those watching from regional communities and regional rural remote communities, educators in schools that have got a lot of students that are culturally and linguistically diverse. This is a big hot topic for them, looking at, well, how do we increase that inclusion and accessibility? Can you share some practical ways that you're seeing AI to help support diverse learners, and any top tips for educators that might be in these schools, in these communities, or in these systems with diverse learners that they're looking to support? How can they use AI? Where do they start?
First of all, it really depends on the kind of AI that you use. But let's talk about language models, large language models. And as I spoke about the diverse students, especially the ones that don't speak English as a first language, like myself, we are getting to a stage that we have to rethink the way we are assessing students, the way that we are assessing knowledge, in fact, right? Because for many years, and I could see this in my education, if you were a good writer, for example, you could get through that kind of, does she really know, or she writes really well? Well, she writes really well, she gets a 10. So, And then we had other people who were way more knowledgeable, or maybe had other experiences that I didn't have, but couldn't really articulate that well, those ideas. And now, if we actually have some kind of partner, as I call AI, so it's a thinking partner questioning some parts of your text, for example, that might be clear to you, but not really clear to someone else, then you have this feedback, an instant feedback, let's say, that you can be using to rephrase, to redo your work, to be honest. And I think that's the way I always use AI, and the way I encourage others to do. I kind of struggle with the idea of, you have a blank page and then you can ask AI to start help. I think that you can always get your input first, and this can be done by anyone. Like even neurodivergent students can actually put something in before they get something back, and then we start the conversation. So I call this a partnership between machine and humans, because you both are having some input in there, right? We're not just coming from um, a machine giving input and then you just kind of go with the flow of the machine. Humans always have their input, and they have to be kept in the loop, as we like to say. So for inclusion, I think that this is a huge step, because we are putting everything that is not only measured by the language that you are able to add in first place on the machine, right? So it's actually that build up in knowledge, or maybe the AI can bring some ideas that you never thought about. So some perspectives that are different from your perspectives, that you never really would have access to if you didn't have this interaction. You might be able to have this interaction with someone else if you know someone else that could share similar ideas, but the AI is there at any time. And for example, especially for students in tertiary, we see that sometimes the time that they work are not exactly the time that they would probably be calling a colleague to share ideas, or a teacher to give feedback. It's just, but then the AI is there available for them. The real thing here is that how responsible are you in the use of AI? How much are you actually putting your intellect to work, and not get what they call metacognition laziness with the use of AI? So this comes with AI literacy as well. So, but that's another conversation.
Absolutely. And I think that is a whole other conversation that we might see coming to a webinar series very soon. But I would love to know, and just thinking about some practical, tangible top tips for our educators watching. Juliana, for those teachers that may be wanting to experiment with AI, they're wanting to introduce it into the class, but maybe just dip their toes in. They're not willing to dive straight in and do everything, but they're just wanting to start with something small. What advice would you have? Where would you recommend a teacher starts if they're just wanting to experiment with AI with their students?
I've been in this area of digital technologies for a long time. Like I've been in AI, I've been for about 10 years. And it's so interesting to see how my thoughts change throughout the years as you read more, as you get to know more, and maybe as AI evolves, right? So when we think about digital technologies, and I used to do this in trainings with teachers in the past, I used to say, you know what, just jump in and try. You won't break the machine. Just give it a try. I don't do that with AI. I don't think it's just like, just go and try, because there are some things behind that could break others. It might not break the machine, but there are risks that teachers need to know. Like James was just saying about putting some sensitive data into the machine. And what is sensitive data? Right? First asking, like it might be sensitive for some and might not be sensitive. Is my name sensitive data? So it's just these kind of conversations that need to take place before. So when I talk to teachers, and when I train teachers here as well, my first thing is like, start talking to a peer that has similar interests or similar goals that you do. Who would be a person that you could sit down and exchange ideas and see maybe copy models? And that's what we do here. When I have trainings with teachers, I don't come up with exercises that I developed or activities that I developed. I try to find out who is a champion around the university, who's doing something that it can be really good to be displaying and say, look, a colleague did this. If you want to know more, talk to them. How can you translate this activity to your own practice? So always find someone that could actually be a peer to help you through this journey. Another good thing is communities of practice. There are heaps going around of educators that are like-minded. So educators that sometimes have those questions, they're not very comfortable to ask in front of everyone, but they are okay in a community of practice because they can see they are all on the same page. So communities of practice, I think it's just a great way to connect to people, get ideas, and try things that you wouldn't be willing to try by yourself. There are other courses online as well that are really good and for free. So if you have time and willingness to do that, you can do that on your own pace. But if you need someone to be next to you, a peer or a community of practice are the best tips that I can give.
Absolutely. And I think the community of practice is so essential because it can feel sometimes a little bit isolating, depending on the community that you're working in and the school or the organization that you're in. There might not be a lot of other people working with these digital tools. And sometimes things don't always go to plan. Something might break or not be perfect. And you need to have that community that you can link back into, get the support you need, ask the questions you need. I think that's fantastic. Thank you so much, Juliana. Now, Mel, I'd love to dive to you as we think about the future of AI development. Now, I always love catching up with you because you just get such a phenomenal view of what's happening across the country and around the world when it comes to the future of educational technologies. And every time we chat, I come with like 100 ideas and 100 insights. Can you share some of your thoughts around what are the biggest AI developments on the horizon for teachers as we think about the next few years? What can we expect to see?
Yeah, it is really exciting being in this space. Before we jump into that, I'm just going to segue for something Juliana just mentioned then when she was talking about, being able to find courses and things like that around AI literacy. As she said that, I was like, we have a course. It is free. So, if you are interested in doing a course, it's for teachers and it's for students as well. So, completely free online AI literacy course, Toddle, and you'll find it. So biggest developments coming. It is really exciting working with a company that is so innovative. And this innovation kind of comes from a couple of different spaces. So we've got a lot of developers, about 250 developers that work at Toddle, and we have a group of them that are solely focused on kind of those moonshot out there ideas. So how cool would it be to be on that team? But as we all know, educators are extremely innovative as well. And so a lot of what we have in the pipeline, or on the roadmap, I should say, comes from what our schools are suggesting as well. So it's exciting to see kind of the two balance out, looking at that future focus, but looking at, responding to what is actually happening down on the ground within our schools. So a couple of big things that I've seen that are coming, so that personalisation of learning, so for students, but then just getting that immediate feedback. For years we've been told about, Hattie and Timpley talking about feedback that needs to be immediate, it needs to be timely, it needs to be targeted. But as you said, Scott, we've got 30 students in our class. How do you realistically do that? And the AITSL standards actually say that we should be differentiating for our learners every single day. Like that's
Massive.
mind-blowing. Yeah, that's massive. So, that personalisation of learning and that immediate feedback, not just for the students, but for the teachers as well, to have that, I think is super, super powerful. Something else I've seen is conversational analytics. This one excites me massively. I think we've gone through that phase in schools where we've had that like bombardment of data. There's just so, it was all about data collection. And then we were like, right, we've got all this data. What do we do with it? Yeah. And so then it became, right, so now we need to become data literate. What do we've got this data. What is important data to have? How do we use that data? But then it's how do we analyse that data? So what we've seen is conversational analytics, where you can jump onto the platform and actually just converse with an analytic tool. Say, right, so can you have a look at all of the student data here? What can you tell me about these students? How does attendance impact their end of semester results or submission rates for student learning. So not only will it present that data for you, but it will give you insights and a breakdown of what that data actually means. So I think that's really exciting because it's making data accessible for everybody within the school.
Absolutely.
We'll go, sorry.
Oh, no, absolutely. And I think also making the data work for you as well. I think it's one thing to collect the data, but actually knowing what you want to do with it and having the tools and that are available for every educator, not necessarily just that one person in the school community that is deeply specialized, but everyone having access to it and making it really applicable and really valuable.
Yeah, that's right. The other thing I was going to mention, and I think this links back to areas for results. I'm so sorry, there's a dog barking in the back. It's probably really loud.
That's okay.
The benefits of working from home, hey. The last thing I was going to mention, and it stems back to that data that we got from the workforce survey, is around that student marking. You know, the marking has definitely increased over time. I'm married to a secondary teacher. I watch him sit there and draft, assessments on the weekends. I think that access to AI assisted grading is extremely powerful. Having a tool that can actually do that first pass of the grading for you, it can pull out those key aspects, it can analyze the rubric, give you a breakdown on that, even just as that first pass. And just as that moderator as well, when we're happy and we're feeling enthusiastic at the start of marking compared to, at the end of the weekend when Sunday night we're marking that final piece and we're not particularly happy, you've got that tool that's doing some of that moderation for you as well.
Absolutely. No, I think that's fantastic and so exciting to see it really helping teachers in every aspect. And the final question I have for you, Mel, is around the role teacher voice plays in shaping AI, because I know that's something that Toddle does quite a lot. They consult with teachers and they really make sure that it's tools designed by educators for educators. But I'd love to sort of change this question a little bit and say, for educators in school communities that are wanting to bring their community onto the ride, what insights have you learned from how Toddle engages with teachers to shape their AI? And then how would you use that to give advice for other educators that are wanting to engage with the teachers in their community to shape how AI works in their school?
Yeah, look, this I feel like Toddle manages this really well, and I'm extremely lucky that I can speak about Toddle having implemented it within a school. So I've been on that user side, and then also working on the working with them, working for them as well. Toddle, I feel like any school that comes on board with Toddle, you're actually coming on board with a community. So something that Toddle does, and anybody that's joining this podcast is more than welcome to attend any of our free webinars. We're very passionate about being teachers first. We provide a lot of PD for teachers, for school leaders, for IT leaders. And I think in having those relationships with our schools, you're naturally building those. You're opening those conversation channels so that they're able to give their feedback about tech that's used and how it's being used. Every school that works with Toddle has their very own Toddle buddy, and these buddies are kind of like that conduit as well. So having that Toddle buddy means that you're hearing about what's coming up next. You're able to put in feature requests. So you're still on the ground with your schools and very much hearing about, what's working, what they're loving, what they're keen to have developed next. So I think they manage that really well.
Thank you so much for that, Mel. I think that's fantastic and really great to see what that looks like, and some really great takeaways as well for our educators. Now, what I might do is I might invite Juliana and James back to the screen as we draw towards the end of our webinar with one final question for each of you, just a rapid fire one. And that is for our educators as they're planning for 2026, as they're thinking around what sort of tools are they going to be using, how are they going to be using them, and how are they using these tools in their day-to-day. What would one piece of advice be that you have for an educator starting to think about the digital tools they're using in the year ahead? In one or two sentences, what would that advice be? Maybe, James, I'll get you to start. The teachers planning for next year, think about digital tools. What advice would you have?
Yeah, look, I think the biggest thing is not necessarily starting with the tool, but starting with like, what is the problem that you want to solve? And it doesn't even have to be a problem. It could be, what do you want to improve on? What is something in your workflow that you would like to change? So I think once you've identified a problem, pedagogical problem or an efficiency problem or whatever it might be, that's when you then think about, okay, these are the tools that I'm aware of. Which one could maybe work best to help me with this? So I think it's, and there will be tools that can help you do things, but it's about identifying, having a clear identification of what you're trying to achieve first.
Absolutely. I think that's fantastic. It's find the tools to fit the purpose, not find a purpose for the tool always. Juliana, what's your advice for educators thinking about their technology and digital tools for next year?
I'll mention two researchers that I really admire, and one does exactly what James just said. Rebecca Marone, she is from South Australia, and she does that. She identifies the problem, and then let's see what we have as tools. And the other one is the one that I carry around as my motto, is for every educator, just learn fast, but act more slowly. Be careful with what you choose. And this comes from Rosie Lucking. I think it's just the best way we can act with AI nowadays. Learn fast, but act more slowly.
I love that. I think I'm going to have that quote up on my whiteboard for next year. That's brilliant. And Mel, from your perspective, what advice would you have for educators thinking about the digital tools and technologies they're using next year?
Don't you hate going last? I was like, yeah, I want James's and I want Juliana's, but I want to bring them together. So it was that like something small that you don't like doing that you think you could, perhaps speed up or automate with AI, but then also just refer to your school's AI guidelines as well. So that safety piece. So just make sure that what you're doing is safe.
That's fantastic. Thank you all for joining us today as part of our webinar to share your insights and experiences. And thank you to everyone tuning in for being part of this conversation. Now, as our webinar draws to a close, I would also like to say a massive thank you to Toddle powering today's session and for the incredible work they're doing to support educators around the world. As Mel mentioned, Toddle has so many free resources, webinars, and supports available for educators across Australia and around the world looking to implement AI, work with digital tools, and ultimately save teachers time so we can get back to doing what we do best, which is inspiring and educating our next generation. Now, if you're an innovative educator leading work in your classroom, your school, and your community, and you enjoyed the session today, I really encourage you to get your tickets to the Future of Education Summit in 2026, as we will be back with 2 incredible events across Queensland. You can find out more about the Future of Education Summit on our website, and of course, you can find out more about Toddle by heading to Toddle's website, which will be shown on the screen and also in the notes. Thank you all for joining us, and thank you, Toddle, for their partnership and for helping power the future of education across Australia and around the world. I cannot wait to see the AI and digital tools you all bring to life in your classrooms in 2026, and I can't wait to see you all very soon. Have a great afternoon.